threat, vulnerability, exploit, risk. 4 words you'll hear constantly in cybersecurity, and 4 words beginners mix up constantly. This is Week 1, Module 1, the threat landscape. Let's fix that for good. Here's exactly what you'll walk away with. 1. A rock-solid personal definition of threat, vulnerability, exploit, and risk, so you stop mixing them up. 2. A mental model for how all 4 connect, so you can reason through any attack instead of just reciting a list. 3. Practice applying all 4 terms to a real, well-documented cyber attack. And 4. A 60-second cheat sheet you can review right before an exam or an interview. Quick heads up before we dive in. Your curriculum might list these 4 in a different order: threats, vulnerabilities, risks, exploits. Here, we're covering them as threat, then vulnerability, then exploit, then risk, because that order builds each definition on top of the last one, which makes the relationship between all 4 much easier to lock in. Same 4 concepts, just a friendlier sequence. So why does this matter so much? These 4 words are the vocabulary your entire career gets built on. Every framework you'll study, NIST CSF, ISO 27001, every job title in this field, from vulnerability analyst to threat hunter to risk manager, and every conversation you'll ever have with a CISO leans on this exact vocabulary. Beginners routinely use these 4 words like they're interchangeable, and that habit alone is one of the fastest ways to lose credibility in an interview or on the job. These are not synonyms. They're 4 different links in one chain, and the chain matters more than any single definition. Let's make this concrete. Forget servers and firewalls for a second, and picture your house instead. Vulnerability is an unlocked back window, a weakness that exists whether or not anyone ever tries it. Threat is a burglar working your neighborhood, someone with the intent and the ability to cause harm, whether or not your window happens to be unlocked. Exploit is the screwdriver the burglar uses to pop that specific window open, the actual technique that turns a weakness into a break-in. And risk is the real chance that your house gets hit, and how bad it would be if it did. It depends on all 3 of the above, plus what's actually inside. Hold on to this picture. Every definition coming up maps straight back to it. Let's start at the top of the chain, threat. The simple definition: a threat is anything, a person, a group, an event, or a condition with the potential to cause harm. A threat is the who or what behind potential harm. And here's the key thing: it doesn't need a vulnerability to exist. A threat can be out there right now, fully capable of causing damage, simply waiting for an opening it hasn't found yet. Threats fall into 4 categories. Malicious human, intentional bad actors, like ransomware gangs, nation-state APT groups, or disgruntled insiders. Non-malicious human, accidental actors, like an employee who clicks a phishing link or misconfigures a server. Natural, environmental events, floods, earthquakes, fires, hurricanes. And technical or environmental, system-level failures, like power loss, hardware failure, or cascading software bugs. In the real world, that looks like a ransomware gang such as Lockbit, a nation-state APT group, an employee who leaves a laptop unlocked in public, even a lightning strike that takes out a data center. All of these are threats. And here's the key insight to remember: a threat doesn't need a vulnerability to exist. It only needs one to succeed. Second link in the chain, vulnerability. Simple definition: a vulnerability is a weakness or gap in a system, a process, or a control that could be taken advantage of. If a threat is the who, a vulnerability is where the crack in the wall is. It requires no intent and no attacker. It simply sits there, waiting to be found. Vulnerabilities come in 5 flavors. Software, unpatched systems, coding flaws like SQL injection or buffer overflows. Hardware, outdated firmware, faulty components. Network, misconfigured firewalls, open ports, weak encryption. Human, low security awareness, susceptibility to social engineering. And physical, unlocked server rooms, unattended workstations. In practice, that's Windows machines missing the MS17-010 patch. A cloud storage bucket left open to the public internet. A login form with no input validation. or a new hire who's never sat through security awareness training. Key insight: every system has vulnerabilities. The goal was never zero vulnerabilities. It's finding and closing them faster than someone else finds and uses them. Third link, exploit. Simple definition: the specific tool, code, or technique used to actually take advantage of a vulnerability. An exploit is the bridge between a threat and a vulnerability. It isn't the weakness, and it isn't the attacker. It's the mechanism the attacker uses to turn that weakness into an actual breach. There are 4 types worth knowing. A zero-day exploit targets a vulnerability nobody has patched yet, sometimes one the vendor hasn't even discovered. A known, or N-day, exploit targets a publicly disclosed vulnerability that a patch already exists for. It only works against systems that haven't updated. An exploit kit is a prepackaged toolkit that automatically probes for and fires off multiple known exploits. And a proof of concept, a POC, is code researchers publish to demonstrate that a vulnerability is genuinely exploitable. Real-world examples: EternalBlue, the tool that weaponized the MS17-010 flaw. A crafted PDF that triggers a buffer overflow the moment it's opened. Even a single malicious line typed into a vulnerable login field counts. Key insight, and this one matters for your whole career: no exploit works without a matching vulnerability. Patch the vulnerability, and the exploit becomes worthless. That's the entire logic behind patch management as a career function. Fourth and final link, risk. Simple definition: the potential for loss when a threat successfully exploits a vulnerability, combining likelihood and impact. Risk isn't a thing, the way the other 3 are. It's a calculation. It's what security teams actually spend their budgets managing, and it's the number that ends up in front of executives and boards. Here's the formula security teams actually use: risk equals threat times vulnerability times impact. Some frameworks write this as risk equals likelihood times impact, same underlying idea. Read that as multiplication, not addition, because pushing any one factor toward 0 brings risk down with it. Barely any threat activity aimed at you? Risk stays low, even with a wide-open vulnerability. No exploitable vulnerability? Risk stays low, even with active threat circling. Nothing of real value to lose if it succeeds? Risk stays low, even with threat and vulnerability both present. One quick caveat: real-world risk formulas, from NIST, ISO 27005, and FAIR, are more nuanced than a literal multiplication. Likelihood and impact are usually scored on qualitative or quantitative scales, not multiplied like plain numbers. Treat the equation as your mental model, not a spreadsheet formula. Here's what that looks like in practice. A hospital running unpatched systems, that's the vulnerability, during an active ransomware campaign targeting healthcare specifically, that's the threat, holding patient records worth extorting, that's the impact. Put those together and you get high risk. Now take that exact same unpatched system, air-gapped, holding no real data. Risk drops way down. The vulnerability didn't change, but the threat exposure and the impact both collapsed. Key insight: you manage risk, you don't eliminate it. The job is shrinking threat exposure, closing vulnerabilities, and limiting impact. Nobody drives it to 0. Now let's put all 4 pieces back together. Here's the functional relationship, not necessarily the exact timeline of any one attack, but how the pieces fit together as a system. A threat wields an exploit against a vulnerability, producing risk. Or, in one sentence, a threat uses an exploit to take advantage of a vulnerability, and the potential damage from that is the risk. Memorize that sentence word for word. It's the single most reusable idea in this entire guide. Theory only sticks once you can spot it in the wild. So let's map all 4 terms onto one of the most well-documented cyber attacks in history: WannaCry, 2017. The vulnerability was a flaw in Microsoft's SMBv1 file sharing protocol, cataloged as MS17-010. The exploit was EternalBlue, a tool reportedly developed by the NSA, then leaked publicly by a group calling itself the Shadow Brokers, in April of 2017. The threat was a group of actors, later attributed by multiple governments to North Korea's Lazarus Group, who packaged EternalBlue into self-spreading ransomware. And the risk, fully realized. Over 200,000 computers infected across roughly 150 countries, within days. The UK's National Health Service was forced to cancel surgeries and divert ambulances. Here's the detail that should really stick with you. Microsoft released a patch for MS 17-010 a full month before WannaCry hit. Every single infected machine had a known vulnerability, with a known, available fix, and simply hadn't applied it. That's why patch management, unglamorous as it sounds, is one of the highest leverage jobs in the entire industry. Before we move on, let's kill a few common mix-ups. The vulnerability is the risk. Wrong. It's one ingredient. Risk is the calculated outcome, not the weakness itself. An exploit and a vulnerability are the same thing. Wrong. The vulnerability is the crack in the wall. The exploit is the crowbar used on it. A threat and a risk are the same thing. Wrong. A threat can exist with almost no risk to you if you don't have a matching vulnerability for it to use. And patch everything and risk hits zero. Also wrong. You still carry human vulnerabilities, undiscovered 0 days, and threats you haven't mapped yet. Risk gets minimized. Never eliminated. Let's test what actually stuck. Pause the video here if you want to answer these from memory before I give you the answers. Actively retrieving an answer builds long-term memory far better than just rereading a definition. Question 1. A crew is scanning the internet for servers running an outdated, unpatched web server. What are they in this vocabulary? Question 2. That outdated web server software itself, what do you call that? Question 3. The crew has written code specifically designed to take advantage of that software's flaw before using it on anyone. What is that code called? Question 4. Your company runs that exact outdated software, publicly exposed, storing customer payment data. What is your CISO actually asking you to calculate when they ask, "How bad is this?" And question 5. True or false? A critical vulnerability with 0 threats currently aimed at your industry means your risk is exactly 0 and needs no attention. Here's how you did. Number 1. Threat. They have intent and capability. No specific vulnerability has been used yet. Number 2. Vulnerability. The weakness itself, independent of anyone trying to use it. Number 3. Exploit. The tool or technique built to take advantage of that specific weakness. Number 4. Risk. The combined likelihood and impact your CISO needs to weigh and report upward. And number 5. False. Treat it as lower risk, not 0 risk. No known threat today can change fast, and opportunistic scanning happens constantly across the entire internet, regardless of industry. Let's compress everything into one 60-second cheat sheet. Bookmark this frame if you're watching later. Threat, who or what could cause harm? House analogy, the burglar working the neighborhood. Ask yourself, who wants to attack me? Vulnerability, the weakness that could be taken advantage of. House analogy, the unlocked window. Ask yourself, where am I weak? Exploit, the tool or technique used against that weakness. House analogy, the burglar's crowbar. Ask yourself, how would they actually get in? Risk, the likely damage if it all lines up. House analogy, the odds and cost of being burgled. Ask yourself, how bad and how likely? So here's what to walk away with today. 1. These 4 terms are sequential links in one chain, not interchangeable synonyms. 2. Threats and vulnerabilities can each exist completely independently. Risk only shows up where they meet. 3. An exploit is the mechanical bridge connecting a threat to a vulnerability. 4. Security work means actively managing 3 inputs, threat exposure, vulnerabilities, and impact, to keep risk at an acceptable level. Nobody drives it to 0. And 5. This vocabulary underpins your Module 1 hands-on exercise, where you'll map a real breach to the cyber kill chain and MITRE ATT&CK. You'll be reaching for these exact 4 words to do it. If this clicked for you, that's the whole goal of this video. Next up, we put these 4 words to work on a real attack chain. See you there.